Hey guys, I'm Sid.
My name is Parker.
I'm Mike, and you're listening to the Try Hard Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to another very exciting, as always, episode of the one and only Try Hard Podcast. For the first time in probably, I don't know, a month or so, it's only the three of us, isn't that? When was the last time it was just us three?
Yeah, probably like a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we go through like a mini introduction for like new listeners of just who we are? They don't know.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. We haven't done that in quite some time, and we've had quite a few new listeners. The Try Hard Podcast is growing. Speaking of which, we still haven't gotten too many new reviews or ratings. So if you guys are listening to this and haven't reviewed or rated us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we would greatly appreciate it. And actually, we should do a giveaway. Depending on how many new reviews we get on Apple, but if we get at least 4 or 5, then I will go ahead and pick one of the reviewers and I will send them a thank you gift or something like that. I'll message you on Instagram after. So there's an incentive for you guys. But yeah, let's do a little introduction. So Seid, you want to do a little intro since it was your idea?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Seid. I live in Northern Virginia. A pretty new triathlete, so I started working with Parker last June. So I'm 14 months into the sport. I had no prior background other than running one marathon, and after that, I was like, "Oh, I want to do an Ironman." That was so that's how I got into triathlon. So yeah, I feel like I bring a perspective that's like a newbie triathlete. Still, I've done 2 Ironmans, but I'm still really fresh in the sport, and it's been great so far working with Parker. Mike, do you want to
And
go?
what races do you have coming up?
Oh, I have Ironman Maryland, and then after that, I have no idea because Ironman Maryland's the only focus right now. It's the only thing that matters.
Sounds like Lionel. All right, Mike.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike. I have been racing in triathlon now. This is my 4th season. I've done 1270.3s and just finished my first Ironman about a week and a half ago at Ironman Lake Placid. I've really enjoyed 70.3s for a long time, but now I've decided that it's time to move up to the long distance with the goal in mind of getting to the World Championship at some point, whether it's Nice or Kona, preferably Kona. We'll get there one day. So, yep.
Speaking of Nice or Kona, do you guys know? Because I thought the contract was supposed to, or wasn't there some agreement or something that was going to run out after 4 years? And isn't this the last year of it being between Nice and Kona, or has there been an update on that?
Unfortunately, they they continued. Yeah, so that it's going through 2026, and then after that, they haven't said anything yet.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, so they've confirmed the date for Nice is September 4th, 2025, for the men, but they haven't announced how many slots will go out at the races. But I know the cutoff to make Kona is August 18th at Frankfurt and Copenhagen. And then after that, every race after that's going to count towards Nice. But what I'm curious about is where they do the cutoff for Nice next year and start going to qualifying for Kona 2026. So could be July, could be August, because the women's race this year is in September in Nice, and their qualifying race is all the way up until I think early August, which is kind of crazy because if you think about it, if someone races a full Ironman, like say the second week of August, and then you give them a 1 month turnaround to make it to France and do the World Championship on a very difficult course, I don't know how many people would actually be taking those slots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Unless
Unless you're like going to just have fun with it. But I don't know if that would be fun.
Yeah, I don't think Nice is just go to have fun for, of course, but especially on that bike.
Or maybe you're someone that, you got injured earlier in the year and you're kind of, that you can qualify for Nice and you're just going to show up to late Ironman and just kind of, half-ass it and then get a spot and then, yeah, go to Nice and kind of use that. But no, that's a very good point because Nice is no joke. But anyway, my name is Parker. I think I started triathlons in 2021 or so. I was first just an athlete with NVDM, Natasha with my coach. And then after about a year or so, I was working at Garmin full time. And then I ended up quitting my job at Garmin and pursuing coaching and training full time. And so that's what I do now. And I have the incredible pleasure of coaching these two fellow podcast hosts and a few other athletes as well that we've had on this channel before. So yeah, that's kind of me. I've done one race, Ironman Texas, earlier this year, which didn't go too well. Ended up with a DNF there. Since then, I've raced 3 70.3s, one of which we're going to be talking about today, I think, a little bit. And then later this year, I have Kona. And yeah, like Seid, don't know what's going to happen after Kona because that's all I'm really focused on for now. But yeah, that's a little short introduction. And now I think we can get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. You guys want to start off about with Paris or a little race recap for myself?
Want to go
Mike,
Paris first? Then we'll get into
Yeah.
the race recap.
sure.
Sounds good. So I know, Say, you were doing a little homework before this episode. So do you want to kick us off with your takeaways from? Well, first off, did any of you guys actually watch the entire race? Because I know, well, for me, it's at like 4 a.m. depending on which race you're watching. I think for you guys it was a little later, like 5. So were you guys up at all?
I woke up to see like it started at like the second loop of the bike, I think it was. So I watched a good chunk of the bike and then the run as well. I didn't watch the swim.
Say,
Yeah, I only watched the last just 8 minutes of the run. So that's
I
about
had trouble sleeping last night, so I watched like the swim and the half of the bike of the women's race, and then I went back to bed, and then I woke up again, and I was watching the men's. I started watching the men's run, and then with like 2 kilometers to go, I'm like, oh, the race is over. So I went back to bed. And then I found out it wasn't over.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was quite the finish, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, so Say, what were your kind of takeaways from any homework that you did?
So based on my homework, so I thought the swim was pretty interesting with the current. So Flora Duffy? So she had an early lead on the swim, and then most people just stayed in the straight line, but she went towards the right or towards closer to the canal, and then you
Yep.
could clearly see that she definitely picked the right line. So that was definitely interesting to see. And then it was also raining in the morning for the female, so there's definitely a lot happening on the bike. A lot of crashes. No one that came like top 5, I don't think, crashed. But it was interesting. That was interesting as well. And then I don't really have anything on the run because I didn't really get any info on that. Was like a key takeaway from that though, which I found interesting, is like a lot of people were like complaining about the race, like there's like weird water conditions, and then also like why are they like the bike conditions are annoying. But I thought it was kind of interesting because like it's like I'm personally not a fan of Olympic or short distance triathlon at all, and that's usually tends to be like I feel like everyone swims together and then everyone bikes together and then it's just like the best runner. I feel like these Olympics were interesting because like there were hard water conditions. So that like the best athlete has to like work around that. And then the bike was also like super slippery and hard. So it shows who has best bike handling skills. And then it's just always going to be a runoff at the like who's the fastest. So I thought that was cool. But I feel like with the harder conditions, it just shows who's like the overall best triathlete. Because I feel like the Olympics pretty much always the same. Like everyone's in a pack on the swim, on the bike, and then on the run. So I'm personally not the biggest fan of that. And it's no TT bikes, so I'm a big hater of the road bikes. So yep. That's all I really have from the female side. And on the men's side, I didn't get any recon other than the crazy finish at the end. Mike, do you wanna go from there?
Yeah. For the women's race, I did not watch it. I watched the highlights and I was trying to look out for Taylor Knibb, and I didn't see much about Taylor, so I didn't know how her race went. I I'm guessing it may not have been the race she was looking for, and I don't know if it was the conditions or I know she was leading the chase pack on the bike, but like Seid was saying, everyone is kind of together. The tough part and the thing that I noticed was if you're not in the front pack of basically once it gets to the bike, you're not competing in this race. It's so short, it's so fast that there's no room to run anyone down unless you're Alexi. But it just looked tough. Like I felt for Morgan Pearson. I was watching him and he was like right in that chase pack, but that chase pack, I mean, they weren't that far behind, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, but like that far behind starting the run, you can't bridge that gap in a 10K. With the level of talent on the run, it's just not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, congrats to, I think it's Bogard. She was first female French athlete to win gold at the Olympics. So good for France in their home country. And then yeah, the men's race was, I did not watch the swim in the men's race, just the bike and the run. And I think, like Seid mentioned, with the Olympic distance racing, it's so different than what we're used to. Like in triathlon, in long distance triathlon, it's like drafting, you can't draft, and it's always frowned upon. And like
Unless
seeing
you're racing in the
happen
200 London race.
yeah, oh yeah, unless you're in 200 London, but like that was even
But even,
frustrating watching it in the beginning.
but even with
Yeah.
like 100, I'd rather watch like draft fest on a TT bike than like 40 people drafting on like a road bike. Like
Yeah,
I'm just like, I don't know.
yeah, and like I noticed with the men, like there were a couple guys that were taking turns pulling, but as soon as they got up to the front, like it was weird the whole time. I felt like they were like looking back, like trying to see where the pack was and if anyone was gonna like come and surge in front of them. And no one really broke away. There was a small section where one guy broke away and Kristian Blummenfelt stayed with him the whole time. But then the group, like maybe they opened a 5 second gap, which doesn't sound like much, but it looks like visually on the map, it was like, oh wow, they're really breaking away. And then they like bridged right up to them, and it didn't really even mean anything. But I think the one takeaway on the bike was Blumenfeld did a great job staying with the front pack the entire time. Like
But didn't he come back? I thought didn't he have to bridge up?
he might, I didn't get to see him at the start of
I
at the
think he
start of the
bridged
bike.
up. I think he made up like a 30-second gap, I think, at the beginning of the
Did
bike.
he?
Yeah.
That makes sense. But when yeah, the whole time I saw him, he was like right in the top five, like the whole time, staying right in there and cornering well, and yeah, it was
Was
good.
was he leading at all? Because like online, what I was like watching was that he was like leading at some portions and then he was just like pulling the group, or is that not true?
He kind of like he was like in front, like maybe for a second or two, and then it was like bouncing back and forth. For the most part, I think he was kind of like right in that top five, just like trading places. He got into the run. I believe he was second coming into T2.
Okay.
And really quickly in the women's race, uh, was Cassandra Bogran? Did she come? Was she like leading the run the entire way, or like was she in that front pack, or did she like
No, she wasn't
I didn't see
leading the
that part?
whole way. There was a group, I believe it was, well, it started with Flora Duffy, but then it was, I remember seeing it was Beth Potter, Brogard, and a couple other, maybe two other females. Um, uh, Darren, the woman that came in third,
Hmm.
or was, no, maybe she was second. She was second. Beth Potter was third. Darren, it was really great. She was in that pack, but Bogard ended up pulling up to the front, and then I think she led the rest of the way. I'm not sure at what mark she did that at, but yeah, she pulled away.
Got it.
But it wasn't far. Like it wasn't like the men's race where it was like two guys clearly ahead and then like the rest of the group. It was like there was a battle for the podium.
What I kind of wish was that they would show live stats, not even like heart rate, but just speed on the run. because especially in the men's race, I would have loved to see, because they're running so. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys know the run splits for the 10K? What Alex C and Hayden Wild ran?
No,
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
they showed it.
they haven't. I don't think they've published the 1K splits yet at all. Anyway.
Yeah, no, because it would be very interesting to see, was Alex kind of holding back and then he just, put in a huge surge, or did Hayden Wild kind of die? Because yeah, Hayden, it didn't even look like he tried to respond. Like maybe he had nothing left, but from what I saw, as soon as Alex passed him, there was nothing left. Or like Hayden had nothing. He just kind of like looked at him and said, bye bye. But yeah, I wish that they would have shown just how, because it doesn't look like they're running that fast or it's that impressive, but I'm sure they got to be running, they're running a sub 30 10K. And
Yeah,
so
29:47. It's crazy, but
yeah,
that's slow for them too, because both Alex C and Hayden Wild have gone sub 29 in like WTCS races. So it's like it was a slow day for the run too, which means like they were definitely clearly pushing hard on the bike.
so surprised that Kristian, I am a little surprised that Kristian wasn't, I mean, he got 12th, but he was only, I think, like a minute back. If you look at the final results, I think like the top 15 were all within like a minute and 90 seconds of each other. So it's still kind of relatively close, but yeah, I was hoping that he would, yeah, bridge up a bit more.
Yeah, it looked like Kristian was really suffering on the run, and I feel like Kristian wears his emotions a little bit more on his face than some of the guys, but yeah, it really looked like he was gritting it out to keep pace. But Hayden, that was so impressive how he ended up catching up to Alex, pulling away, looked so strong, and then Alex out of nowhere, just catching him. And Ezra and I talked about it in the pool this morning because we watched. Well, we both woke up, watched the race, and then went to the pool and swam. And I feel like Hayden knew, like he raced his hardest. Like when he looked at Alex on that pass and didn't like try to surge up with him, I just don't know if he had anything left.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he would have if he could have. I just at that deep into the race, like he had just given it his all, and like you could tell when he crossed the line, he was still super happy to take home silver and was like a true sportsman when he went over and gave Alex a hug. Like he just knew that it wasn't necessarily that he lost it, he just got beat.
Yeah. I think Alex won. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think Alex won. Like I think Alex knew that at what pace, like what the pace was going to be, and I think he was kind of strategically planning that attack. Like he had to be. I don't think there was like a second wind of energy that came. Maybe I could be wrong, but I feel like he just strategically knew, like, okay, I need to send it at 600 meters or 400 meters, whatever it was. There wasn't a lot of runway left though.
Yeah, he waited till the end. Well,
So
Seid,
do you guys think Hayden's gonna come back in 2028 to go for, since what, he got third lot 2020, now got second, he's gonna go for the first, he's just gonna fully move on to 70.3, you think? In T100.
I feel like he might try to do like a Kristian Blummenfelt, go up to middle distance maybe for a bit. I mean, I could see him easily getting a T100 contract. That might be attractive for him. And then like be one of those T100 athletes that does try for the Olympics as well. But maybe he doesn't move up to the full distance. But I mean, he's a favorite for the 70.3 Worlds because he's a pretty strong biker as well. And I would probably pick him right now to be my favorite for Taupo.
Yep. I think honestly, I think the podium of the Olympics, all of them, I think are going to get wild cards for T100 this season.
you think Alex will take it?
I don't know if he's going to take it, but he's definitely going to get offered. But
what if he shows up at Kona?
Oh, that's right. He could, right? Because he's
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that means Kristian's not going to be at Kona anymore.
No, Kristian's going to Frankfurt. But do you guys think he's going to qualify?
Oh, do you think he will go to Frankfurt?
Oh no, for sure. That's what his plan.
Perfect.
He said,
oh, okay.
If I qualify, I'm going right into Kona build. If I don't qualify at the Olympics, it's Frankfurt, and then I go to Kona build.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I was so disappointed because we wouldn't see him at Kona. I was more disappointed he wouldn't be there than he didn't win at the Olympics. So that makes me actually really happy now.
There's also the possibility that between, like, if you think about it, he only has like 2 weeks or a little over 2 weeks until Frankfurt. He's got 18 days. That's a quick turnaround. Between now and then, there is a chance that the Ironman committee or whatever it is, they could decide that he has validated himself through the same way they did with Laidlaw, showing fitness, racing in the Olympics, something like that. Because the fact that Laidlaw got disqualified and then they, allowed him to race, technically Kristian is still qualified. He just needs to validate. So
Yeah, so that's why he's just gonna go to Frankfurt. Like, if you just have to validate, you don't have to win. So he's just gonna do it. I think he's gonna just do it. You definitely want to get a full one in for Kona, and knowing Kristian, like, he's a monster. He's like definitely gonna go and do it. Like, there's no way, like knowing Kristian, he just wants to win and he hates losing. So like, he got 12. He's mad as I feel like he's pissed right now. He's definitely going to Frankfurt and he's gonna win. I think like if he doesn't win Frankfurt, I'd be shocked.
I think that's true. Like, he did say in the Norwegian podcast, or the Norwegian Method podcast, that basically, he's going for gold, but at the bare minimum, a podium. And he said, if I don't get a podium, like, I'm going to be in a dark place for a little while. So,
and Kona's just one race really that he hasn't won. He's won everything literally except for Kona.
Yep.
And Nice. Yeah. And what?
And Laidlaw.
Oh yeah. Oh, we can say this for a different podcast too, or a different episode later. But really quickly, do you guys want to touch on 2028 Kristian winning Tour de France?
Yeah, we'll save that for another one.
Really quickly, do you guys think, yes or no, he has a chance of winning, or he will win a Tour de France by 2028? Yes or no, by 2028?
Like yellow jersey or a stage?
Yeah, overall, because I think that's his goal. His goal is to win the yellow jersey.
But I don't think so.
I agree. Mike?
I'm gonna disagree. I think Kristian is capable of pretty much anything
By 2028? So 3 years, less than 3 years, or 3 years?
How old is he? Can he is he gonna still be like
He's
good?
30.
30? Yeah, because what, Gustav's like 27 or 28?
Yeah.
Maybe not, but
I think he can, and I think he could, but not in that short of a time. I think he's gonna need more time.
yeah. I don't know. I think that his team surrounding him, like, they can do every goal they've set out to achieve, they've got it done. Other than, winning Paris, but like, no one has really successfully gone from short course to long course back to short course. So it was kind of like it's never been done, but at the same time, he won the world championship within a calendar year and won gold at the Olympics. So like, he's shown he can do anything. I just I don't know. It'd be pretty interesting. What team do you think he'd race for?
It was like the Alula team, the Australian team, right?
Is that the one?
It would be Team Suntar Attack.
Yeah.
His own team.
Start his own team.
I definitely do see him like winning a stage, but like the whole yellow jersey.
Yeah, he could win a stage
next level.
But,
It also, like, winning the yellow jersey also depends on the team. Like, I think the main team they were talking about.
That's true.
And I don't really know like how strong they are, but and like, why would you really build like a cycling team? How do like other cyclists feel of a triathlete? Like how like you're building a team and your main guy is the triathlete. How are the other cyclists going to feel about that? Definitely not good. So
yeah. Well, I think it also depends on what does he go all in on this and just like stop triathlon like at all for the next 3 or 4 years, or does he do kind of the same thing like he's been doing with the Olympics and do a little bit of this, a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think like he said his childhood dream was to ride in the Tour de France. Like,
that's true.
I wouldn't be surprised because he's achieved everything he's probably wanted in the triathlon space. And especially if he wins Kona, I could definitely see him stopping it and going all in. And then I think it could happen. I also think you'll see Cam Wurf be his domestique.
That'd be awesome.
He needs a team of triathletes. That's what he needs. A team of he needs Magnus, he needs Lionel. We got to bring Jan out of retirement, and everyone's
Sam
just
Long.
Sam Long. Yeah, everyone's just gonna ride for Kristian. Yeah, Sam Long seems like he wants to get on the road bike.
All these guys are too heavy, like Magnus.
That's
Sam
what I
Long
was
are too
thinking.
heavy. Like watts per
Yeah.
kilo, just like what is like today is like holding 7.3 watts per kilo for like 45 minutes. That's like absurd.
Yeah, I mean he is the specimen. Nobody's on his level, but
Yeah. Like I understand like for triathlon, you know, I don't think body weight or body figure or size has that big a role, if any, to do with your success. But I do think there's something to be said about, you know, marathon running, ultra endurance cycling, you know, Tour de France, like those kind of very specialized sports where you are just doing one sport. I mean, it would be kind of naive to say there isn't a, you know, a certain body type that performs best at the Tour de France or at marathon running or something like that.
yeah.
And so I think that is something. As of now, Kristian Blummenfelt does not fit that ideal yeah body type.
On Instagram, I saw someone comment under like one of those posts like, "Who's this linebacker riding this bike?" And I was like, he's not going to survive a day on the tour. Like what?
I think the important part though is body composition can change. We all know
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So I think if anything, Kristian could certainly make some adjustments to body comp, be ready. But the fact that he already has like some of the most, probably like the best physiology in the world, at least
Yeah.
of what's been recorded, has the highest VO2 max ever recorded. I would be curious to see what Pogacar's is, but I'm sure it's up there.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And like I think it would be very for him to change like body composition, it wouldn't be very hard. I think especially since like Mike said, with his team and everything having so dialed, and especially if he does continue to work with Olaf, you know, he is so invested into measuring caloric expenditure, tracking everything to the exact T. I think if there would be an athlete and a team to do it the best way possible, it would be him and the resources in his team that he has access to right now.
Yeah, I don't think we could say that about pretty much anyone else but Kristian.
Yeah.
One more thing. I think it'd be sick. I think it'd be really cool.
Actually, so that actually brings up one more thing I was thinking about. At first, I was just thinking about what would be harder to win the Olympics or an Ironman World Championships. But now you guys are talking about the Tour de France. Out of those three, if you had to rank from hardest, I mean, they're all incredibly hard to win. But if you took, you know, the everyday Joe at age 10 and trained him specifically for one of those three events, which, if you had to rank them from the one that would be, you think, most achievable to least achievable, how would you rank them? Seid?
So for most achievable, I think I would say Kona probably. And then I don't know, for 1 and 2, it's like really hard to choose because I feel like Olympics every 4 years. So that's also, there's like a certain time window that really like plays a factor into it. But the tour is also just so insanely hard to win. I feel like you just have to be like a crazy specimen to win it. So I don't know. What do you think? I don't know if I can.
I agree with you. I think Kona would be the quote unquote easiest to win. And I think I would go Tour de France second, and then the hardest would be the Olympics for two reasons. One, as you mentioned, it's only once every 4 years. And the second reason is actually the swim. Because the swim is so technical, and if you're not in that front pack in the swim, kind of like Mike said, you're kind of screwed in the Olympics. If you come out of the water and you're not, you know, in that lead bike pack, then you're probably not going to bridge up to the front of the bike. And unless you have some God gifted talent for running, I don't think you're going to catch anyone on the run. Whereas in the bike, like for the Tour de France, I mean, it's incredibly hard as well, but at least for that, you just have to be an incredibly well talented, you know, a gifted biker, and not the swimming. you don't. I think the swimming is so hard to get at that level, at that Olympic level for.
Yep, I would agree with that. Mike, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, in order, I'd probably say Olympics first was hardest. For all the same reasons you guys said. Yeah, I feel like it's so short, it's so fast. There's so much little room for error. With the tour spanning, what is it, 21 days or 27 days?
21, I think.
21,
21
yeah,
days,
3 weeks.
right?
21 stages at least.
21 stages, yeah. I mean, you could have a semi-bad day, still be in it. There's a lot of room and time to make up gaps, and it's also different too with you have mountain stages, you have TTs, you have sprints. It's a little different. And then yeah, Kona. Not that Kona's easy to win, but I think if you're training if you had a kid where you're starting them out at 10 years old, like if you think about it, most short course triathletes get into triathlon at a very young age. They started in one of the three, or like someone like a Kristian where he was a swimmer and then very early on got into biking and running. So it was like you're bred from childhood for it. I feel like cycling probably too, like a lot of these guys, they start pretty young. I feel like the average starting age for triathlon, like long distance triathlon, is much older. Like you can't even enter an Ironman until you're 18.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, you see if you had someone specifically targeting that, like training for that distance from 10 to say 18, that's 8 years of dedicated training. And then, even beyond that, they're going to, train well past 18, say another 10 years. So you're 28, like 20 years worth of training for long distance triathlon. Like, yeah, you should probably be relatively competitive at Kona.
Well, sounds like we're on the same page there.
Or do you want to go? Should we go? Do we have anything else to say about the Olympics, or should we dive into your race?
I have one last thing. One thing I don't like about the Olympic distance. I saw it on display in this race, and it was one of the Great Britain athletes was basically like pulling Alex Yee up on the bike, like, because they can draft. So he was like putting in a huge effort, and I think Alex, no disrespect to Alex, like he killed it, but I don't love the fact that you could have a teammate pull you all the way up. They get onto the run together. The teammate is like running, and like as Alex starts to pull away, like the teammate's like going nuts. He's yelling to the crowd, hyping the crowd up, like pointing at Alex, and then he just all of a sudden like moves way over to the side and then just starts walking, and he ended up DNFing. Like
really?
the teammate was literally there to pull him into position to where he needed to be on the bike to get in and be ready to, rip the run. I think if it weren't for that dedicated teammate, I don't know if Alex would have been where he was on the bike, because I know Hayden is a much stronger cyclist. But I don't know. It was just a weird thing to see. I didn't know he DNF'd until Ezra told me this morning. He's like, yeah, that guy like dropped out of the race. And I was like, that's like at least finish. Like he was fine. Like he just started jogging and then slowed to a walk, and like he was just there to hype Yee up, which is cool, but I don't know. I think I don't love that, because it is an individual sport. I know it's for your country, but triathlon is an individual sport. So, all right, race recap.
So for those of you that don't follow myself or any of us on social media or on YouTube, speaking of which, you should check out my YouTube channel. And you can also watch the Try Hard podcast on the YouTube channel if you want to see our beautiful faces while we talk for hours at a time. But this past weekend, I decided to race another local half iron distance race up in Wisconsin. I had an athlete and great friend of mine who lives right near me, Rob. He signed up for it a few weeks ago, and I thought, why not? It'd be a fun time. It's a 2-hour drive, so whenever I can race without having to pack my bike up into a bike box, I say, why not? And plus, what was I gonna say? Oh, the race entry. Yeah, it was only like $200, so quite a bit cheaper than an Ironman branded race. But we drove up there Friday, the day before the race. Like I said, 2-hour drive. Didn't forget anything. Oh, really quickly, funny story about forgetting stuff. I know my dad listens to this. He may get mad I'm sharing this, but I guess I'll backtrack to, I think last year I raced a half Ironman in Wisconsin, Milkman. And I think 2 days before the race, I realized that I actually forgot my helmet at home. And so my dad, very graciously, he actually drove home like 3 hour drive, picked up the helmet, and then came back the following morning. And since then, he's always kind of given me crap about forgetting stuff. And I have a checklist, but I didn't use it on that day. And what I blame the fact that I actually didn't bring my bike box, and I usually leave all my stuff in my bike box. But anyway, so today actually my dad, he was driving up to Michigan to visit a friend of his and do a little biking with him, some golfing. And I get a text from him, I don't know, around noon or so. He got to Michigan. He says, Parker, you won't believe this. I'm blaming you. He brought his bike shoes. He brought his bike computer. He brought his chargers, or he brought the batteries for his SRAM shifters. He brought gloves. He brought everything except for the bike. He forgot the bike at home. Yeah, so he was mad at me. I don't know why. But anyway, I just thought that was a funny story. So yeah, if you guys ever go on a bike trip, make sure to bring your bike and everything you need for your bike. I was laughing a little bit, but then I remember when I went to visit Mike up in New York, I forgot to bring bike clothes. So yeah, Mike, and now you know why. It's in my genetics, but but anyway, so we show up, brought everything to the race, which I was very happy about. Didn't forget anything. Race was Saturday morning. Woke up, had the classic Red Bull. Oh, speaking of which, Mike, I forgot to tell you, it was a good flavor. I liked it. I forgot what flavor. Yeah, there you go. What flavor is it?
Is that
This
Juneberry?
was the Juneberry, but you tried the elderflower.
Oh yeah, you're drinking that now?
No.
Okay.
Earlier. It's just at my
Okay.
desk.
I was like, it's 7 o'clock there. But yes, I had the
Yeah,
elderflower.
I'm getting ready for my morning swim with Ezra right now.
Stacking up our pre-workout.
He texted me and said, "You're gonna need a Red Bull sponsorship to keep swimming with me."
Probably true. But anyway, yeah, had my Red Bull. It was pretty good flavor. I enjoyed it. Gave it like I think an 8 out of 10. Had my coconut jasmine rice for breakfast, along with applesauce. I always have applesauce, banana, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we showed up to race day, or to the race venue. It was a really nice venue. We swam in a lake. They said it was wetsuit legal. I highly doubt that, because I felt hotter than I did at Muscleman, and Muscleman was like 0.1 degree under wetsuit legal. So I don't know if the ice harries came again or what, but we swam in the wetsuit. I ended up breaking 30 minutes for the very first time. I was very excited about that. Now, I will caveat that the swim was a little short. However, that being said, there was also like 7 or 8 turns in the swim. It was a 2-loop course and like a square. And so we had to turn a lot, and that always slows me down quite a bit. So I'm very happy with the swim, and my goggles finally didn't leak. I actually wore the correct pair of goggles this time. For those of you that may remember, they leaked for me at the Grand Rapids Half Ironman, or half distance triathlon I did back in June. And then I thought I bought a different, well, I know I bought a different pair of goggles that I thought I was going to wear at Muscleman, because they didn't leak in the pool. And I realized after watching the race footage back that I actually ended up wearing the same goggles I wore at Grand Rapids at Muscleman. And so they look very similar. And so I threw those out when I figured that out. So I finally wore the correct pair of goggles that didn't leak. And what also kind of helped was that there was a little bit of a swim warm-up you could do before. I didn't actually really warm up, but I did put my head underwater and take like 2 strokes just to make sure that they didn't leak. So pro tip, if you're worried about leaky goggles, try that out. But anyway, yeah, got out of the water. Felt good. 28:30, I think, was my split. I felt strong. I definitely was overheating quite a bit. I had some feet in the first, 300 yards or so, lost them on one of the turns, and then I was finally able to get them again. But by then, we were pretty much out of the water. So swam most of it. I'd say probably 1,500 yards out of the 2,000 or so alone. So I was pretty happy with that. Felt strong, felt in control. Came out of the water. My dad said I had, I think, about a 3-minute deficit. And actually, one of the things I was most happy about was, even though this was a local triathlon, we still had a good amount of participants. I actually had the third fastest swim time out of all the half iron. So it's definitely by far the best I've ever come out of the water compared to the rest of the field. So that was pretty exciting. Anyway, get out on the bike, and the first 2 or 3 miles, I thought to myself, man, this is going to be a fast bike. I was cruising, pushing 260, 270 watts, going like 26 miles an hour, 26 and a half miles an hour. I was like, we are going to be, yeah, booking it right around that 2-hour bike split. And as soon as I started getting excited about that, we took like a turn onto kind of like the main part of the race, or the bike race, and the roads just kind of turned to crap. It was just one of those classic country Wisconsin roads that you kind of biked on, lots of potholes. I just had a really hard time pushing power. The legs actually felt really good. Heart rate was in control. It got down right, as I was coming out of the water, but I just couldn't push the power. My cadence kept dropping. I was worried about hitting potholes. I was bouncing up and down. And there were a few sections here or there where there was a good flat stretch of road. And for those sections, I was kind of pushing my goal power, which was between 260 and 270, relatively comfortable. Heart rate was right around 150, 153. So definitely in my control. But for the rest of the race, and for the rest of the bike part at least, my heart rate just kept dropping. I think by the end of it, I was riding around 140 heart rate, 230 watts, so really low for me. I was able to stay on top of nutrition. Thankfully, didn't drop. Well, I dropped one bottle, but it was already empty, so it didn't matter too much. But yeah, the first 2 miles and the last 2 miles, which were the exact same, but those were both the fastest parts of the race. But anyway, I didn't think I was in the lead actually coming off the bike, because somewhere along the race course, I heard that I was still 5 minutes back. At least that's what I thought I heard. However, and I didn't pass anyone on the bike. So I thought I was still kind of, at least I didn't pass anyone after the first, couple miles. And so I thought I was still, a minute or so back, but I got off the bike, and in T2, my dad said, Parker, I think you're in first. No one has really come in here. And so as I exited T2, I asked, there's some race organizers right at the exit. I asked them, am I in first for the half iron? They said, yeah, no one's come through yet. And so I was like, sweet, awesome. So I kind of knew at that point that I was going to, I don't want to say I knew I was going to win the race, but it would be hard for someone to come and catch me, because I'm usually one of the fastest runners there is. And especially at a local race like this, where I knew the competition wasn't going to be that high. If there wasn't someone biking with me, then, I don't think that they would have been able to catch me. And so I kind of thought about, I won't lie, I did think about kind of turning it into just like a tempo run and not pushing too hard, kind of settling in at a 6:20 or 6:30 pace. But then I was actually thinking of my coach, and you guys as well, my friends, my buddies. Like, what if I told them I just kind of jogged it in for the last 13 miles? And no one would be too happy. And then plus, I was thinking, well, if I wasn't racing this, what would I be doing right now? And I thought to myself, well, I'd either have an easy run today and a hard workout run tomorrow, or some type of workout off the bike today. And so I was like, all right, let's just send it, see what we can do. So I ended up trying to run the run part as if I was racing it and I was trying to catch someone. And I'm actually really happy I did, because I had one of my best run splits ever. It was a pretty hilly course. And my friend and athlete Rob, who raced this with me, he can attest to it. There was one hill, it was a 2-loop course, an out and back. So you ran out, back, out, back. And right before you turn around, so when you're going out and right before you turn around and come back, there's this, I don't know, quarter mile, or maybe not quarter mile, but like 0.2 mile long hill. And it's not, I wouldn't say it was as long as the one in Muscle Man, the one that you go up, Mike, kind of up that bridge or whatever.
Yep.
I don't know if it was as long as that, but it was definitely as steep. So it was it wasn't fun. Definitely felt it. Dropped my pace quite a bit. But I ended up averaging just around a 6:02 minute per mile pace, and I felt very controlled. Never really pushed like I was pushing it, or never really felt like I was pushing it too hard. I heard after the first out and back that I had a 7 minute lead on anyone else, and I was the fastest one out there. So that was a nice kind of yeah, motivation boost. But then I also knew I wasn't gonna have to go to that deep dark place to win. And actually, I'm not sure if he's listening, but I met a fellow triathlete, Evan Wetzel, I believe, who's from Wisconsin, 26-year-old. And we actually ran, well, he was on his first lap and I was on my second lap, but he was a quick runner and I think he would have been much more competitive, except for the fact that, speaking of forgetting stuff, he showed up race morning and realized that he forgot his clip-in shoes. So uh, he did the entire bike flat, wearing flats. Yeah, I was impressed. I don't know if I would have raced if I realized I forgot my shoes. Mike shaking his head.
You wouldn't catch me racing.
Seid, would you have raced?
Nope, definitely not.
Well, there you go, Evan.
If it was like a sprint or an Olympic, like maybe, not a Ironman, and certainly never a full.
Yeah, but anyway, I ran with him. So for me, it was miles what 7 to 9, or no, I think like 8 to 11 or so. 8 to 11, and for him, it was the first lap of that. So I don't know, 5 to 6 or whatever the math turns out to be. Had a good conversation with him. Gave him my coaching plug. So maybe one day he'll be a future NVDM athlete. We'll have to wait and see. But he actually raced Kona a few years back. So he raced Kona in 2021, I believe, and then he kind of took a break. And I think this was his first triathlon in like 2 years. But anyway, super nice guy. Happy I met him. But like I said, I never really felt like I was pushing hard, but I felt like I didn't cross the finish line feeling, I left it all out there, which I'm very happy about leading into kind of this next chapter, I guess, which I'll touch on here shortly, Kona build, and also moving to Salt Lake. But yeah, so I ended up winning the race. I think I won by like 28 minutes overall. So very happy with that. 4:08 finishing time, fastest swim ever, second fastest 70.3 ever, only behind Muscle Man, which was 2 weeks ago. And for the fact that I didn't taper for this, once again, I had pretty like a 5-6 hour training day on the Wednesday before the race. Yeah, stoked with where my fitness is at going into the Kona build. Speaking of which, I'm going to be building up for Kona in Salt Lake. I'm actually headed out there. Well, this podcast will probably drop on Thursday. I'm going to be driving Sunday, Monday, and possibly Tuesday to Salt Lake City, or just south of Salt Lake in Lehigh, Lehigh, Utah, where I'm going to be doing a mini training camp. I'll be out there for 2 months. The biggest reason is just so I can bike and swim outside more, to be honest. The riding out here isn't great where I currently live, and this outside swimming isn't, well, it's kind of non-existent unless you want to drive for like an hour or so. And plus, Salt Lake is a place I have been thinking about moving long term. Sadly, I can't live at my parents' house forever. So, yeah, I'm kind of scoping out different places to live. Salt Lake being one of them. I think later this year or next year, I may do something similar up in Bend, Oregon, just to kind of check it out and see what I like. I did something earlier this year, like I mentioned, at Lake Placid, and I loved it. And if it wasn't in the middle of nowhere, then I think that would probably be at the top of the list. But yeah, seeing as it's like a 2 hour drive from any airport, it's kind of a hassle to get in and out of. But yeah, I'll be out there if any of you guys listening are in the Salt Lake area and want to do some sessions together, let me know. I know our fellow teammate and pro triathlete Kyle Warwick, who just actually raced Maine, 70.3 Maine. He lives right out there, so I'm gonna be training with him quite a bit, I think, as well as a few other buddies. But yeah, very excited for that, and I'll be out there until I think first week of October. Then I'll come home for a week and then head out to Kona with Mike, who's actually gonna be training out there with me for a bit.
Sure. So during the race, Parker, how did you feel going into this one? compared to the last two 70.3s? Like, did you feel more prepared, or were you more relaxed because it wasn't maybe as big of a race, or did it still hold the same weight in your mind?
I've actually felt very similar, and the reason that being is because I really tried to approach, especially after Texas, I've been really trying to approach these last three, or yeah, what is now three races, with the mindset of, I'm just going to go out here, have fun. It's a celebration. Another training day, really. Instead of training at home in my basement, I get to be out here enjoying it. And I think that's really helped a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I still get like a few nerves, a little anxious before all these races, just because, it's a race and it's going to be a hard workout. But yeah, this race, Muscleman, I really just felt more relaxed, and I haven't been as concerned with hitting the goal numbers. Like, for example, the bike this past weekend, after the first 20 miles, I knew I was going to be averaging a lot less power than when I averaged just that Muscleman a few weeks ago. But I didn't let that get to my head. I just thought, Parker, the road conditions are crap. You can't really do anything about it. The legs just may not be there today. Don't let it worry you. Just finish the bike, get on the run, and see what you can do. Whereas, like in Texas, I just let my current feelings and emotions just completely overwhelm me, and I was too caught up in the moment, and I was stuck on focusing on everything that was going wrong at the moment instead of trying to problem solve and not necessarily come up with excuses as to why I didn't feel great or why things were going wrong, but rather look for stuff that are factors that may be influencing it that isn't, Parker, you're just not fit, which isn't the case. I know I'm fit. I've hit the numbers in training. I know what I can perform, or the level I can perform at. And so trying to take a different mindset and approach, and not let the numbers worry me, and know that I am performing to the best of my abilities at this day, and have that confidence within myself that I am pushing myself hard and I'm doing everything I can. I think that's honestly been the biggest learning lesson I've taken away from these past, 2 months, three races, and something that I will definitely try to take with me in this next build and into Kona as well, the race day itself.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be huge, and definitely take it into race day, because Kona is there's definitely be some moments with weather and everything just miserable out there, but I know you're gonna crush it, and that's gonna be so hyped to see.
Yeah. I know my coaches. I've been telling Natasha that I've been trying to not view these races as races and just another training day. And she's like, "Why can't you just do that at Kona?" I'm like, "Coach, it's Kona." I'm definitely going to try not to overhype myself and not get all in my head, but I'm also not naive, and I know that everything. Well, and that's also actually part of the reason why I'm excited to go out there early, just so I can normalize it a little bit. I know having Mike out there, training with him before the race as well, I think that will help a lot. Trying bringing everything kind of back to not making it some huge special event.
I think that's really important, is to not make it bigger than it needs to be. As much as it is the world championship, it's Kona. If for you, Parker, specifically, you've already been to a world championship. You've already finished second in your age group at the world championship. Like, that's a huge deal. So you know you can compete at a world championship on a course that I personally think is potentially harder than Kona. So some people may disagree with that have done Kona, but that St. George course is no joke, especially for the full. It's insane. But yeah, I think, with you having done so many races now, I think that helps to calm the nerves. But yeah, going into a race and trying to stay calm and not make it a big deal is a big difference. Like, that was, as much as Lake Placid was a big deal to me because it was my first full, I don't think I've ever gone into a race as relaxed. And I don't know if that was because I was like, okay, this is not going to be as hard as a 70.3 in terms of like the effort that I have to like put power down. It's gonna, like, I'm gonna be kind of almost in an upper zone 2, or maybe just above like a zone 2 effort for the duration of the race. And in my mind, I was like, that's not that bad until, you get to the marathon. Um, but yeah, I was very relaxed going into that race, and I know the difference because at Eagleman, I was like shaking on the start line before the swim, and I'm like, why am I so nervous right now? Like I've done this specific race twice, and I've like PR'd here, like it's a great place, and I'm like, this is not going to be hard. But I was way more nervous and worried before that race than I was before Placid. Maybe it was because of the first race of the season and it had been 9 months or so since I'd raced. So I don't know. But you've got some good races under your belt and confidence going into this one. So I think you're going to crush it.
And I also think it was kind of the week leading up to it. I mean, you were in Auburn, you're very low key, wasn't doing much, and I think that also plays a big role. Whereas, before Eagleman, you were still working, you were in New York, New
Yeah.
York City. So I do think that also, yeah, I think that plays a big role. Because like when I saw you, the week before, it was just like we were two buddies just going out
Yeah.
for a training ride. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very, very relaxed the whole week the 2 weeks leading up were really,
Yeah.
really relaxed and low key. And I think the taper went like as well as it could have because I've had good tapers before, but I've also had bad tapers where I've felt like I've looked on Whoop. At least that was kind of my metric before I like really dove into like Training Peaks numbers. I could see like my strain each day before the race was going up and up and up, and like you want that to be going down. Like
Yeah.
and then like my recovery, was on the trend up, and in other times I've seen it where it's like trending down, and it's like just like a stairway into hell, not a stairway up to heaven.
Uh, well, I think there's the two race recaps from Paris, and then the much more exciting venue of I don't even know how to say pronounce the town that we were racing. It was like Okinawa. This is so long name, but anyway. Now, before we sign off, we do like to do a segment we haven't done in quite some time. A nutrition segment, which Mike is very excited about. He was telling us how he has a new gel he likes to, or he wants to tell us. But before he goes, actually, I want to mention a new gel that I actually tried on race day. I know I tell people not to do this and you shouldn't do this, but it was a 70.3, a low key event, and I made sure to take this gel at the very kind of end of the run. So I knew if it wasn't going to screw me, that it wasn't going to, hurt the race. And it was a new gel from it was the Spanish brand. I think I may have talked about it a few times here. Santa Madre. It was a citrus flavor, and I remember thinking to myself, it tasted like an orange flavor with some zinc to it. It had some caffeine. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, the one product I haven't enjoyed from that brand is funny enough, it was their like unusual gel. It tasted kind of like I think battery acid or something. It was pretty bad. But besides that, all their products so far have been good. And this citrus orange one with caffeine was no different. So there's my nutrition product of the week. Mike, what is the gel that you were so excited about?
So the feed just released the Power Gel 30 gram, like the Black Label Power Gel gels that have 30 grams of carbs in them, and you can get ones with caffeine in them now. And I believe they also have one of the things that I was interested in was the fact that the gel also had 200 milligrams of sodium. Most
Oh,
gels that I prefer have not had any sodium in them, like so 30 or like Precision Fuel and Hydration is just 30 grams carbs, no sodium. And then I believe the SIS Beta Fuel, that's 40 grams carbs with like 90 milligrams sodium. So not much, a little bit, but probably more for taste than anything. But the Power Bar one, it was pretty good. It was a lemon flavor. I would like to try when they really, I think there's going to be other flavors than just lemon. I'd like to try other ones, but it was kind of refreshing, and it reminded me a little bit of if anyone's ever had it, it's the Goo liquid shot lemon flavor. Uh, like Goo has these ones, they're not like an actual like Goo gel, it's more like liquid. And the consistency was similar. It felt like I was having more of like a drink than I was actually having a gel.
Kind of like an SIS gel or
Um,
not the beta fuel ones,
it
regular.
was definitely different than beta fuel. Like the beta fuel is definitely more like, oh, this is a gel.
Yep. Yep.
The power bar was like, oh, is this a gel? Is it a liquid?
Nice.
It was good. It was kind of
I like the liquid gels.
yeah. And the fact that it's got 200 milligrams sodium is really good because Seid and we sweat a lot. So
Yep.
Me too.
And then so actually I have a product too that if you know me, I'm a big fan of Ketone IQ, aka Gypsy Tears. But this is the peach flavored one. So honestly, I'm extremely disappointed.
Oh no.
One of the reasons I like Ketone IQ is because of the really strong flavor that a lot of people find off-putting. I really like that. It's like it tastes like jet fuel. So that's right there. Hits the placebos going crazy. So this
Do
one
you
tastes
drink battery acid in your free time?
only if it says Ketone IQ on it. Then yeah.
they
But
definitely
this one tastes
off
really good
during
actually.
fraternity pledging.
Yeah, maybe. But the peach one actually tastes really, really good. It has 100 milligrams caffeine, so you can definitely feel the caffeine. But another negative why I don't really like it as much as the regular one is it's only 5 grams of the ketones. So ketone IQ, even like the 10 grams, is usually not enough. So with the 5 grams, it's definitely not enough. So if you want some
Didn't
extra
realize,
caffeine, you
I
only
didn't
want.
realize that it was only 5 in the
Mhm.
caffeine one. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really annoying. I only realized it once I took it and like read the label. So if you want like a tasty caffeine option on your bike rides, definitely check out Peach Ketone IQ. But it does taste really good, but I like the regular ones better.
Well, there you guys go. There's the nutrition segment. I would like to also let you all know that Raw just came out with a new product. It's raw salt. So it's just a vial of, I believe it's sodium chloride. And what I really actually, I've already tried it, I've tested it out. What I have enjoyed when I first got it, I thought it was literally just salt in a tube. But I'm not sure if how they dilute it or what, but it doesn't taste as salty as regular salt. And each vial is 6 servings, and each serving is 500 milligrams of sodium. And I actually used it during the race at Lake County in Wisconsin. I started to cramp a little bit on the run, and I had it in my nerd belt. So I just took I'm not sure. It's not a sip because it's salt and it's not like a lick.
Lick. It's kind of like a lick, unless you just like
Yeah.
put down the gullet. Like that's a
Took
lot.
like a little shot, I guess, a little shot of the raw salt, and yeah, the cramps went away, right away. So I'm not sure, like I said, if it's placebo or what, but it seemed to have worked. And so if you guys are looking to pick something up, it's perfect for putting it in your just race belt when you're running, so you don't have to carry extra salt tabs or anything like that. And like I mentioned, each tube has a total of 3,000 milligrams of sodium, so should be enough for any race. And I just put a bunch in the bag I take to races. So even like the day before, the morning of, leading up to a race, just having access to those definitely going to be a game changer. So check those out. We'll have the raw website linked in the description of this episode. And as always, you can use code NVDM to save 15%. But that's gonna do it. Any last words? Anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap this up?
I will have the salt stuff is great. I've used stuff like that from another company in races, and I always carry it with me on the run. And yeah, one of the best ways to use it, in my opinion, is to like lick your thumb, pop the cap open, put your thumb over the hole, shake it so you get salt on your thumb, and then just like lick it off. Rather than throwing it down the gullet, like it's a lot of salt to put down. And I always time it right before an aid station. So like
That's a good idea.
I'll do it like seconds before I'm about to grab my first water so that I have the water to chase it down with. But I mean it can bring you from feeling like my race is over to I am like on top of the moon, I'm ready to go. So good stuff.
And as I mentioned, it is literally called raw salt. It's under the endurance tab. So if you guys want to check it out. But hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I'm not sure when or what the next one will be. As I mentioned, I'm gonna be moving. So it may be a week next week. I'm not sure if we'll have time to record, but I think we may have some more guests coming on in the very near future. So as I mentioned, go ahead, hit that subscribe, follow, like button, all the above. And yeah, we'll send a little goodie box to anyone that reviews this and we choose. So go ahead and do that to be entered. But see you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Try Hard podcast. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you could share with others and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can either DM us on Instagram, leave a comment on YouTube, or message us through the Spotify app. Lastly, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, the Naperville Acupuncture Center. If you ever find yourself in the Chicagoland area and are dealing with some aches and pains, I cannot recommend Frank and Angela enough. They do an amazing job over there, and I promise you will leave feeling so much better. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you guys back here next week.
Maybe go odds.
And no, dude, you have to try the Sauconys. I want to try the Sauconys, but
Did they come out with
Yeah.
new ones?
huh? The
Did they
tube?
come out with what?
They didn't come out yet, but once they get the
Oh.
tubes, I want to
They
try.
released them. They released them to a few people. And I believe Rico.
Rico.
I think he's
Rico
using one,
Bogan?
but I don't know if you saw his Instagram story or not. His inside of his heels were like ripped apart with blisters.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
like
was-
no one wore socks at that race. I feel like everyone
Oh.
skipped the socks that race. It was crazy.
that would explain it then. Yeah, wow.